We start soon. Coming to the human physiology, the central nervous system. Now we are completed with the human anatomy. Slide change అవ్వట్లేదు. అవ్వట్లేదు. నేను ఇవి ఎక్కువ నాకు తెలియదు. అట్లా వస్తుందా? ఇట్లా రావట్లేదా?
ఇట్లా రావట్లేదు.
అవునా?
ఇట్లా నుంచి వస్తుంది.
ఇట్లా ఓకే. సారీ ఇబ్బంది పెట్టండి. స్టార్ట్ అయింది కదా? ఓకే. Coming to the human physiology, the central nervous system. Now we are dealing with again the revision. The central nervous system, it consists of brain, spinal cord. It receives input from the sensory neurons, activate motor neurons, and the motor neurons is the output. Association neurons maintain the homeostasis. So, same diagram. This is the input, sensory neurons. The association fibers here the coordinate, and the output is given through the efferent fibers. Afferent, away from the body, they are going to the brain. Efferent, towards the body, they are the motor functions. And the meninges, I told you, no, the brain is covered by the 3 meninges, and it is also covering the spinal cord. That are the 3 things. They are dura mater, arachnoid matter, and the pia mater, the innermost. And embryonic development, groove appears in the ectoderm. The brain is developed in the ectodermal structure, and 20th day of the conception, neural tube which is formed, 28th day, that is forming the CNS. During 5th week, modified. During 5th week, your brain is divided into 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. Forebrain is again divided into the 2 parts: telencephalon, diencephalon, and midbrain is also called mesencephalon, and the hindbrain is also called metencephalon and myencephalon. It divided. Hindbrain is called rhombencephalon, which is divided into metencephalon and myencephalon. Part of ectoderm which fuses occurring become lateral neural crest, neural notochord, and the neural crest. This is the notochord. Beside notochord, there are neural crest cells. From these notochord, you develop your brain. Beside neural crest cells, from there you develop the ganglia of the peripheral nervous system. Coming to the embryonic development, 3 main vesicles I told you. Prosencephalon, mesencephalon, rhombencephalon. This prosencephalon is called forebrain, which is again divided into 2 parts: telencephalon and diencephalon. This telencephalon gives rise to the cerebral hemispheres. 2 walls of the cerebral hemispheres are from telencephalon, which is a part of prosencephalon. And the next is the diencephalon, which is derived from the thalamus and the hypothalamus. And the midbrain, mesencephalon, it is from the forming the midbrain. So, when development, there is only 3 folds. To show you. During development, there are only 3 folds like this. This is the prosencephalon, mesencephalon, rhombencephalon. And during development, this prosencephalon again divides into 2 parts. This is telencephalon, diencephalon. This mesencephalon doesn't divide, but the last part, rhombencephalon, again divides into 2. That is metencephalon, myencephalon. This prosencephalon divided into two, which is called the telencephalon and the diencephalon. This telencephalon forms the two cerebral hemisphere. This diencephalon forms the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Here is the prosencephalon. Now coming to the midbrain, mesencephalon. Mesencephalon, it is only dividing into the midbrain. And the rhomencephalon is again divided into the two parts, that is metencephalon and the myencephalon. This metencephalon is giving you the pons and this myencephalon is giving to the medulla oblongata, and the medulla oblongata continues as the spinal cord. Total, first there were three, and the first thing is again divided into two, and the last one is also developing into two, and the space between the cavities. Here the first thing, telencephalon. The space between the cavities forming the lateral ventricles, and the space between the diencephalon is forming the third ventricle, and this part, third ventricle, leads into the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle is forming the rhomencephalon, and the space between them is forming the aqueduct. Embryonic development, I told you, telencephalon grows disproportionately, forming two cerebral hemispheres. Ventricle and CSF are two cerebral hemispheres, and the two cerebral hemispheres are filled with CSF. These lateral ventricles, and the lateral ventricles, they lead into the third ventricle. This is the third ventricle, and the third ventricle with the aqueduct of Sylvius enters the fourth ventricle, and like this the cranial cavity is formed, and the lateral ventricles entering the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. CNS composed of grey matter and the white matter. Grey matter consists of neuronal cell bodies. I told you CNS. Think if this is your brain. Outside is the grey matter. Inside this is more whiter. So it is the inner matter. Inner matter is more whiter than the outer matter. So grey matter is outside, white matter is inside. Grey matter contains cell bodies. Cell bodies. I told you the structure of neuron. Cell body. This cell body is outside, which is carrying information and axon tract. It is giving information, taking information, giving information. So it is in the white matter. Next, coming to the cerebrum, the only structure that is forming the tail. I told you. Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. The forebrain first part. Now we'll talk only about this. This telencephalon forming the two cerebral hemispheres. The cerebral hemisphere is the largest part of the brain. It contains 80%. What is this function? Its main function is higher mental functions. Higher mental functions include your memory, your behavior, your speaking, your talking. Everything is under the control. Your vision, all under the control of cerebrum. And the two cerebrums are connected by corpus callosum. And coming to the cerebrum, see here the areas, motor areas. I told you the Broca speech area, everything is here. The central sulcus. The central sulcus, in front of the central sulcus is a motor area which involved in the voluntary control. You are moving your hand, you are walking, is under the control of the motor area. And in the frontal lobe, there is a motor speech area called Broca's area. I told you the articulation of the speech is under the control of the motor speech area. If your motor speech area is lost, you're understanding everything, you're giving the understanding speech, but you're not coordinate or articulate your words. And the lateral sulcus and the auditory area, it listens. And the area central sulcus, in front of the central sulcus is motor area, and behind of the central sulcus is the sensory area. And the sensory area all the inputs, sensories are all the inputs. It contains all the inputs from all the senses. And the parietal lobe. Parietal lobe, there is a area in the parietal lobe, in it area, this sensory association area. Here also some sensory fibers are present. Occipital lobe. Occipital lobe mainly combining visual images, means your vision, you're seeing. I'm seeing the camera, you're seeing me. Now my image goes from the retina into the your brain, and in the occipital lobe, from there it gives the information. Coming to the cerebellum. Here the cerebellum is maintaining the balance. Brainstem. Brainstem again, brainstem में three parts है. और midbrain, pons and medulla. They control the decussation fibers, and also they control the respiratory system. Coming to the cerebral cortex function, characterized by numerous convolutions, elevated folds are called gyri, depressed grooves are called sulci. Frontal lobes. I told you the frontal lobe contains upper motor neuron involved. They regulate motor innervation of largest area. So coming to the back image, so see here in the frontal lobe, the yellow thing is frontal lobe, the green lines in the yellow thing is the motor area. So your motor control is in the frontal lobe, your sensory control is in the parietal lobe because your sensory area is present in the parietal lobe, and likewise your auditory is present in the temporal lobe, your vision is under the control of occipital lobe and the cerebral cortex. And this is called homunculus representation, where different parts of your body is under the control of different parts of the brain. Which is the most important part of your body is in the major part. Your legs are more, but your thumb is less, but the most function is with the thumb, so it is represented big. And your tongue is more, you talk, you eat, you do things. The major functions are controlled by these things only. Your legs and your stomach, these are not the major things, they don't, genitals are representing the smaller areas. Hence the major areas which are represented, this is a motor and sensory, this is called homunculus representation. The spelling HOMUNICULUS, homunculus. I'll write it for you. Homunculus representation, where different parts of area is controlled by the different parts of a body. Different parts of a body is under the control of different parts of the brain. So the major function, your face is the major part, where there is everything is in the face. Your body only movement for legs, but your thumb, it is writing, it is eating, it is doing everything. So it is representing the major part compared to the toes. Even though your leg is small, but your hand, which is doing the major functions, you're holding, you're catching. So depending on the functional, this is not according to the size. The homuncular representation is depending upon the function, which has the major function is major representation in your brain. So you're coming to the sensory. In the sensory, your lips for taste, everything, tongue for taste, they are represented for the major part because they carry the sensory. And in the motor, swallowing, eating, talking, mastication, chewing, so their facial expression, tongues, they are represented major because they carry the major function. Homunculus representation is the main thing which represent different parts of the body in the different parts of the brain based on their functions, not based on their size. Coming to the cerebral cortex, I told you previously, parietal lobe, primary area responsible for perception of somatic sensations. I told you parietal lobe, it also contains 312 area number. Central, behind the central sulcus, there is a sensory area which controls the sensory system. It is under the control of the parietal lobe. And the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe, I told you in the previous image. I'll show you again. Temporal lobe. In the temporal lobe, there is an auditory area. In the parietal lobe, the green lobe, there is a sensory area. In the pink lobe, there is an auditory area. Hence, your temporal lobe is holding your temporal lobe is controlling your temporal lobe is controlling your auditory functions, and the parietal lobe is controlling your sensory functions. The cerebral cortex, occipital lobe, mainly occipital lobe. This is thing for your vision, everywhere, everything. Occipital lobe controls only and only vision. Insula is for memory. Insula is a thing which is cerebral cortex, and in the middle here is a part. It is also called, there are two lobes. Insula is also considered as a third lobe of the brain sometimes in some textbooks. Implicated in memory coding, integration of sensory information with risk. It coordinates cardiovascular responses to stress. Visualizing the brain, this is not much important, but to visualize the brain, and what are the investigations you do? In X-ray, we can't visualize the brain, so we do CT scan. CT scan is also an X-ray with the computed tomography. And the positron emission tomography, it is a radioisotopic investigation which causes the brain metabolism. So functioning of the brain mainly depends upon the glucose and the blood supply and the CSF. So positron emission tomography, it identifies the functional areas of the brain. If the function is more, it includes function, there will be high uptake of the radioisotope. Sometimes you see a patients with convulsions, epilepsy, seizures. When you do a PET, For these patients, there is higher uptake because there is more neuronal activity in the epilepsy. It is a very high, um, what do you say? It is a very excitatory state where the glutamate is stimulating. Glutamate is a stimulatory hormone, excitatory hormone. The excitatory hormone is more and more stimulated in the convulsions. You know what is convulsions? Fits or seizures, whatever it is. And these positron emission, when you take the electron, it more activity is there, so it takes more amount of electron, and it is identified as the most metabolized area. When there is least metabolism, it rarely spaces like this. And magnetic resonance imaging, which aligns proton. This MRI is used for the brain function, and you can also sometimes do for sleep. Sleep we do for EEG. EEG. EEG is the measuring of synaptic potential, cell bodies, and create electrical currents. It is used to diagnose epilepsy and brain death. In epilepsy means there is higher functions, excitatory, more fibers are firing, likewise the beta. And in the brain death, there is flat waves. EEG is flat in brain dead person because no impulses, because EEG is measuring the synaptic potential. In brain dead person, will he able to generate potentials? No. So there will be a flat curve. And when the in epilepsy person, it is an excitatory state where there are more and more number of stimulus and excitatory potential. So it causes more electrical activity. It looks more of like beta waves. Coming to you, how do you identify when you are sleeping? Close your eyes, everyone. You're closing your eyes, and you're closing your eyes and relaxing, and you're awake. That is alpha waves. Beta waves, you're closing your eyes and thinking what is happening there, what is happening here, when is the exam, when is the lockdown, why is this corona, everything you're thinking, because that is beta waves. When a person is awake, you're awake but closing your eyes, just relaxing, that is alpha waves. He's awake, alpha waves. Beta having more functions. Even you're resting, you're sleeping, but your brain is totally functioning, hence the waves are more electrical potential, more waves are coming, and the more potential, more clinical activity. The person thinks, when is this corona, when is the lockdown, everything is on beta waves. And coming to the theta waves, these are easily arousable. The person sleeps, he is into sleep, but he can be easily awakened. Delta waves, delta D for deep sleep. And the waves are like this. And the sleep is of two types, REM sleep and non-REM sleep. Before talking to this, I'll talk to you ECG patterns. I told you it is recorded in what is the parietal and occipital lobe twos. Person is awake, relaxed with closed eyes, awake. I'm awake, but I'm just closing my eyes and sleeping. That is alpha waves. A for awake. Beta waves. Beta waves are more from the frontal lobe because thinking ability, memory, everything is in the frontal lobe. So the person, you sleep, but you're in a stress mode. You're thinking what is happening. So there is more generation of potential. So more waves are producing. So more waves are stimulated. Evoke the activity. So theta waves. Theta waves is from the temporal and occipital lobe, and it is when adulting you are sleeping. It is a sleep, but it can be easily arousable when you are in an emotion stress. You came, some murder is happened. The person came and slept. If somebody less, he wake up like a shock. That is called theta wave. And delta wave. Delta wave is in sleep, deep sleep. Usually children, it is more in the children. They always sleep. And in awake person, if delta wave is present, then it is a brain damage. In delta wave you get an in beta waves you get nightmares. In delta waves also you get nightmares, but you can't recover. Memory is not functioning in the delta waves. You might be recognizing something, like you sleep, you get a dream, but when you wake up the dream will not be recognized, and you can't recall the dream. Recollection is very difficult, and you can't recall the dream because it is happening in the delta wave pattern, that is non-REM sleep. So when the dreams are coming in the delta wave, you can't able to recollect when you wake up. When the same dream is coming in the beta waves or any other waves, you can able to recollect. That is called uh, sleeping arousal pattern. EEG sleep patterns, two types of sleep. REM, I told you, beta waves are more because he always thinking something. Here dreams occur, but you can easily recognize and recall. Low amplitude, high frequency oscillation. Non-REM sleep, high amplitude but low frequency, means very late sleeps. Superimposed on sleep spindles. Here, when you get a dream, you can't recollect. So, in NREM sleep, memory is not function, so you can't recollect the dreams. Basal nuclei and the basal ganglia. These are the neuronal state bodies. They contain the motor movements, and your body gives a control. My brain, and I have to take the pen, or I have to keep my hand here. My brain gives a stimulus. I keep the hand, but how long or how much? If I keep like this, my hand will hurt. So the fine movement, and it processes the information. The basal ganglia are the things are the extrapyramidal system. Pyramidal system is the motor system. It carries all the motor function. What is this extrapyramidal system does? It does the motor activity to a precise motor activity. Control of voluntary movements. Keep your hand. I can't keep like this. So to keep like this, it is under the control of basal ganglia. My brain says pick up. I take forcefully, but my hand will hurt. So it causes the precise movement. Cerebral lateralization. So, which lateralization means when your left hemisphere is damaged, mode of speech problems. Right hemisphere, I told you, difficulty finding in your way to the house because most of the visuospatial tasks are control of the right hemisphere. You can't identify the route of your house. If your speech problem, you're unable to talk. Or analytical ability, you can't unable to analytic. Then these are under control of the left hemisphere. Coming to the language, I already talked about it. Because Broca's area involves articulation of speech. The comprehension of speech is impaired. When Wernicke's area, it involves the language. When damaged, language comprehension is there. I'll talk. This is called Wernicke's area because my speech area with nonsense words. Because without any meaning. And the next thing is angulus gyrus, center of integration of auditory, visual, and some aesthetic information. It causes damage, produces aphasia, means they can't even talk. Angular gyrus is the thing which is connecting Broca's area, Wernicke's area, all the areas related to the speech. So when it is damaged, it produces aphasia. Articulate fasciculus. To speak intelligible words originally in Wernicke's area must be sent to the Broca's area. Emotion and motivation. Emotion and motivation. For any emotion status, your brain is controlling. Hypothalamus and limbic system controls your emotions. Limbic system. Limbic system, what is this limbic system does? It is a group of 4 brain nuclei fiber tracking the ring around the brainstem. See here, the limbic system is around the brainstem. What is it for? It for emotional drive. It is a closed circuit. It is also called Papez circuit. It contains fornix. Fornix is the thing which is supporting to hippocampus and then to the hypothalamus, and from where it projects into the thalamus which send back to the limbic system. That's why you cry. Emotion and motivation. Areas of hypothalamus and limbic system are involved in feelings and behavior. I have told you. Aggression, amygdala and hypothalamus. And fear is also amygdala and hypothalamus. Some people will have stage fear. And because of this amygdala is controlling, they can't able to speak. And sometimes alcohol. The alcohol person, amygdala is suppressed. So what does he do? He let off everything, fear. Usually the fear is controlled by amygdala. When a person takes alcohol, alcohol is inhibiting your amygdala so that he doesn't fear to anyone. When the person is normal, when the person is in alcohol intoxication, the difference you can observe because the alcohol intoxicated person speaks everything without any fear because his amygdala is inhibited. Say like, and hypothalamus is also inhibited, so he can speak everything whatever he wants. Feeding. Hypothalamus, fat, feeding and satiety center. Hypothalamus maintain. When you're hungry, your hypothalamus says you're hungry. When you're full, your hypothalamus says you back, it's full, stop eating. And sexual drive. Hypothalamus and limbic system again control your sexual drive and behavior. And these sexual drive and behavior is controlled after puberty. And goal directed behavior. If somebody gives a punishment for doing a wrong thing, you don't repeat it again because this is also under the control of frontal cortex and hypothalamus. Frontal cortex, why? Because the behavior, and the hypothalamus, it is the link and the connection. It also causes hypothalamus reward function. When somebody impressed, if you got a first rank and your teacher impressed and she spoke a few words about you with a good manner, you feel like I'm good and you read everything till you get the next time also. This is called the hypothalamus goal directed behavior. Memory. How you memory? Short term memory, long term memory. Memory of recent events. What happened yesterday? That is called short term memory. This short term memory is converted to long term memory. How? So memory is created in the neocortex. This is a brain cortex. Here memory is created. Here there is a hippocampus. It is converting short term memory to long term memory by activating NMDA receptor. You study but you forget. To retain it for a long time, you have to give repeated stimulation. So repeated stimulations call, if you take a phone number or anything, 242 242, you keep on counting 242 242 till you keep there, it will be there. That is short term memory. And the long term memory is when even you are sleeping or when you wake up, you speak and talk it, because your long term memory. This is long term memory is stored and carried, and the long term memory is created everything by the hippocampus. Critical important. And the hippocampus, what does it does? Instead of stimulating normal neurons, because of repeated, if you study one time you forget, that is short term memory. You study for repeated hours and repeated revisions, because of NMDA receptor activation, it converts to the long term memory. What is it functioning? Hippocampus. If your hippocampus is functioning well, it is converted to long term memory. In Gajini, he doesn't, his hippocampus is lesion, so he can't recover, he can't recall everything after 15 minutes. Long term memory. Coming to the long term memory, consolidation of short term into long term memory, I told you this is happening mainly in connections of the NMDA receptors, mainly by the hippocampus, in the hippocampus. And the same thing mentioned here, which I'll read it for you. Requires activation of genes leading to protein synthesis and formation of new synaptic connections, mainly by NMDA receptors. Altered postsynaptic growth of dendritic spines in area of contact. Cerebral cortex stores factual information. Any fact information is stored in the cerebral cortex, and this information is keeping stored, which is taking and transferring the information. Hippocampus and prefrontal lobes involves in performing exact mathematical complications. Long-term potentiation, this is also hippocampus. How? The process I told you, the NMDA receptors activates glutamate. This causes depolarization, opening of channels, and they helps you in maintaining long-term potentiation. Neuronal stem cells. Actually, neurons are the cells which do not regenerate, but exception is in the hippocampal area, where the neurons can gel. Neural stem cells regenerate to mitosis and produce different neurons and neuroglia. Coming to the thalamus and epithalamus. Thalamus composes 4/5 of the diencephalon, forms most of the wall of the third ventricle. I told you thalamus is a main sensory relay station. What are the sensory things? Visual cortex, hearing. So visual relay station, auditory hearing relay station, and many other sensory things. Any sensory stimulus, visual, hearing, touch, pain, the relay station is thalamus, and it helps in the sensory information carrying from body to the brain. And hypothalamus contains epithalamus is present just below the thalamus or around the thalamus. It contains choroid plexus where CSF is formed, and this CSF is secreted into the lateral ventricles, then into the third ventricles. From there it goes into the fourth ventricles. And choroid plexus, it's over. And then the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin. These pineal glands is secreted more in the night, hence your pineal glands causes sleep. Hypothalamus, I told you repeatedly, hypothalamus contains neural center for hunger, thirst, and body temperature, regulation of sleep, emotions, sexual arousal, anger, fear, pain, and pleasure. It also stimulates hormonal release from anterior pituitary. It produces ADH and oxytocin also. It coordinates sympathetic and parasympathetic reflexes. Coming to the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland, it stores and releases ADH. ADH means anti-diuretic hormone. When this hormone is released, it prevents excessive urination. It causes all the water retention in the body. And oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone which causes bonding. During labor or delivery, there is excess release of hormone. That's why there is a bonding or love between the mother and the child. Oxytocin is also called as love hormone or bonding hormone. Hypothalamus produces releasing and inhibitory hormones that are transported to the anterior pituitary. These hypothalamus, they regulate what? Secretion of anterior hormones. Anterior pituitary, secretions of the endocrine hormones like thyroid, growth hormone, whatever it is. Coming to the midbrain. Midbrain functions, corpora quadragemina. This corpora quadragemina, you need not remember everything. And what are they do? Remember the third nerve, fourth nerve coming from the midbrain. And what is the midbrain relay center? Inferior colliculus for auditory information, superior colliculus. What is superior colliculus? Third nerve is at the level of superior colliculus. Third nerve is oculomotor nerve. So it helps in visual reflexes. Cerebral peduncles. I told you, descending fibers are from the cortex to the body. Descending fibers, they have to pass through the midbrain. This is the road from where it can go. So it comes, and the down fibers go to the up, from the body to the brain, through the spinal cord. Everything carry from midbrain. Substantia nigra. Substantia nigra is producing dopamine, which dopamine causes motor activity, increase the motor coordination. When this motor coordination is lost, substantia nigra, it can't stimulate the dopamine. So that in Parkinson's, if you observe, there is slow movements, stupor movements, and the person is expressionless face because of substantia nigra lesion, where there is loss of dopamine. And red nucleus maintains connections with cerebrum and cerebellum, involves in motor coordination. Coming to the hindbrain. Hindbrain, it involves pons and cerebellum, pons and cerebellum, and the metencephalon. And the next thing is myelencephalon, which is medulla. We'll be dealing with it. And the pons. Surface fibers connect to the cerebellum, and deep fibers are part of. Here the pons, see in the diagram. And apneustic center, I told you, apneustic center, pneumotaxic center, respiratory centers, everything is in the pons and medulla. They control your respiratory center. And the cerebellum, what is the cerebellum do? Coordinated movements. To test for cerebellum, you do close your eyes and finger nose test. Close your eyes and get your finger there, or knee heel test. If you are unable, if my hand is going somewhere like this other than the nose, then my cerebellum is not working. Coming to the other thing, let's say for motor learning, joint movements and limb movements. If I walk, my legs are coordinated, right leg first, left leg first, right leg next, left leg next. This everything is under the control of cerebellum. Coming to the hindbrain, myelencephalon, medulla oblongata. This medulla oblongata, it consists of all the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cranial nerves, and all the descending fibers and ascending fibers from the spinal cord carries to the medulla oblongata, from the medulla oblongata to the midbrain, and then to the cortex. If it is sensory, it relays to the thalamus and goes into the brain. In the vasomotor center, I told you vasomotor central, it decreases BP and decreases heart rate. Increases heart rate when vasomotor center is inhibited, it decreases BP. When the cardiac center is also regulating autonomic control of the heart, respiration along with the pons. Reticular formation. Reticular formation is a complex network of nuclei and nerve fibers within medulla, pons, midbrain, thalamus and hypothalamus. What is it doing? It functions as a reticular activating system, non-specific arousal of cerebral cortex to incoming sensory stimulus. Ascending spinal tracts. Now, these are the things. These ascending spinal tracts, I told you previously, information from receptors and Israel receptors to the cerebral cortex. See, sensory fibers, they come and go, and medulla they cross, that is called decussation, and from there they go to the area of sensory area 3, 1, 2. If it is a pain and temperature, it crosses in the medulla, it crosses in the spinal cord itself and decussate in the brain. So here in the slide you can see temperature receptor crossing in the spinal cord and then ascending, and the touch receptor, it is crossing in the medulla and then ascending to the cortex. Descending tracts. I told descending tracts are coming from the cortex to the spinal cord. So the primary motor area. Descending tract is coming from here, like this. This is ascending tract, this is descending tract. It crosses in the medulla oblongata, anterior lateral corticospinal tract, from where it goes to the skeletal muscle and causes contraction of the skeletal muscle. What is this do? They help in the fine movements and recovery. Extrapyramidal tract influence movement indirectly. I told you they are making the movement fine movements indirectly by the extrapyramidal system. Coming to the cranial nerves. What do the cranial nerves do? They I told you there are two pairs arising from the cell bodies from the forebrain. They are olfactory and optic nerves, and the other from midbrain and the hindbrain, which are mixed nerve, motor, sensory. Spinal nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves, 8 cranial, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar and 5 sacral and 1 coccygeal, and produces two roots. I told you, ventral root and the dorsal root. Dorsal root is for motor, dorsal root is for sensory, ventral root is for motor. Coming to the last thing, reflex arc. Reflex arc is the thing which is very intense reflex, very within a seconds. It doesn't go to the cortex. All these fibers, ascending fibers, descending fibers, all are going to the cortex and impulse is reflected and the reflex is coming down. But in the reflex arc, the impulse occur within the spinal cord and then go back. Look into the diagram. If there is sensory neuron, this sensory neuron carries information to the dorsal root. From there, the cell body of neuron is carrying the information to the spinal cord. Within the spinal cord there is association neurons where it gets synapses with the association neuron and forms the motor neuron. Sensory neuron in the spinal cord itself, it crosses and synapses and then forms the somatic motor neuron. It conducts impulses and causes reflex contraction. This I told you, no? When I am keeping here, this is hot, I take off. This is main reflex arc. Reflex arc is brain is not involved. Brain is directly not at all involved here because it is controlled within seconds. No? So we have to take it. Thank you.